Hello and welcome to this episode of the weekly Shakeout of Paula's Run Club with me, Paula Radcliffe.
And me, Christopher Thompson.
And this is, of course, still brought to you by HIGH5. Thank you very much to them for their support and backing in this. Don't forget, you can head to high5.co.uk and use the discount code Paula25. And next week, I think it is, we're coming up with a launch of the new Zero Plus products, which have a little bit of creatine or multivitamins or triple the salts and minerals to help you stay super hydrated in the really hot weather over Christmas. But joking aside, you do actually lose a fair bit when you run in all those layers over Christmas and then come into the warm, of course. So not a bad idea to have a look at that. And happy nearly Christmas, Thommo.
I know, I can't believe it's literally next week.
I know.
Are you ready?
Not at all. Not at all. But then that's probably typical me. I'm like scrambling around, I think, well in advance. And then I think I've got ages. And then I come back about this time and think, oh my God, I haven't. I need to get really organised with things.
I know we're going to talk about this. Just quickly, have you got your meat yet? Like, that's always the one that some people freeze or get closer. Have you actually got?
No, I haven't. I kind of figure I'm shopping in the French system and they don't believe in like panic stuffing. So they'll just get stuff. So they would have the supermarkets really well stocked. So I will go in and order it. Okay. But it will be fairly easy to get, I think.
Okay.
I have got my Christmas pudding. Okay. And my mum's made the cake.
We did. What? Remind me, you're a fruit cake or you're like a?
Oh yeah, I'm a proper traditional fruit Christmas cake with the marzipan. Not that fussed about the icing, but Raf likes to steal the icing off the top, so we're sorted.
Okay, fair. Well, Gemma doesn't eat raisins. It's the only thing she doesn't eat, which really.
Oh.
Whereas I
Christmas,
quite like
that messes it up. She's stuck with chocolate log then.
Yeah, which isn't a bad alternative.
I know.
But do you do the heated brandy on the top?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, the flamed.
The flame, the flame, as in,
Try not to singe your eyebrows while you do it.
The magic trick that that all dads around the country like to show off to their kids with, which I need to learn.
Yeah.
Right, this is the Shakeout.
It is. So we're going to crack on with the questions that we've got. Thank you so much, first of all, to everybody that is sending in those questions. A quick reminder of that WhatsApp number to send them into. It is +44 7564 747 914 on socials, of course, and by email to paulasrunclub@momentumbroadcast.co.uk.
Fantastic. Right. Getting right into it. This one comes in from Josh in London. He says, "Hi, Paul and Chris. Really love the episode about breathing techniques and things we should consider when breathing during exercise. One question I was wondering was whether a cheap chest strap heart rate monitor was therefore restricting your breathing capability or whether or not it impacts your diaphragm moving up and down. Would be really great to get Jane's take on this. Love the podcast. Keep doing what you're doing. All the best, Josh in London."
Well, I think it would be good to get Jane's expert take on there. Sure. I have a feeling that she is going to say no, because you shouldn't be breathing from high up. You should be breathing from low down. And as he said, it's the diaphragm moving up and down. So kind of getting the full expansion there. Your chest strap probably doesn't need to be that tight to impede your ribcage moving anyway. It is made of like an elastic thing. So in many ways, it's no different to a sports bra that most women would wear, and that doesn't impede your breathing. It shouldn't be so tight that it would be that restrictive. So I think you should be fine. And judging by the number of elite athletes that use it in training, I'm thinking of people like Ingebrigtsen and a lot of footage of him using that. I don't think it does impede your breathing and affect your performance.
When you were answering that, I was practicing the only breathing through my nose and then only breathing through my mouth. And it is, when you only breathe through your mouth, you do like breathe out through that sort of area where you put the strap. But if you only breathe through your nose, which is what Jane sort of advocates for to increase the volume, it's hard to breathe through your chest. It does come from lower down.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just because I've learned behaviour, but yeah, I was just doing it then thinking about the encouragement of that extra space and that lowering the diaphragm. But I'm sure we can certainly ask her direct anyway.
Yeah. But that is good implementation. Your next homework is to put on a chest strap and go for a run, and then go for a run without and see which one works best.
Yeah. Yes, 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 teacher. I will go. I did. Do you know what? I was unfortunately my son picked up a bug, so he's home from school today. But I was planning to do a run, so my excuse is my son getting ill today that I couldn't get out for a run. Is
Oh,
that
I
a good
hope he gets
excuse?
better soon. It is, and hope Theo gets better soon.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. They're resilient. Kids
They,
bounce off
oh, they
illnesses.
bounce back within an hour of getting to stay off school. It's amazing.
Do you know what? Uh, I'm learning that for the first time now that he started school. It's amazing that power of recovery on the walk home. Anyway,
Right, next one. Hi, Paula and Thommo. I took up running nearly 3 years ago at the beginning of 2023 when I was 43 and found your podcast at the start of this year, building up to the Manchester Marathon. A major frustration I've had has been periodic injury to my lower left leg, which has hampered any consistency or improvement in performance. Due to this annoying reoccurrence, I've had to cut short my 2025 running calendar, and after 2026 planning, I'm resigned to wiping out at least the first third of my plans for next year. Over the last 2.5 months of injury, rest and recovery, prescribed exercises and physio appointments, I've seen my race predictions skyrocket. I think he means sky plummet. Sky 4, I don't know. But he says, I've seen my race predictions skyrocket, VO2 max plummet, and overall fitness level, which would be classed as decidedly average, drop off dramatically. Now at the age of 46, I'm aware I'll never regain the effortless fitness of my teens and 20s. But how do you deal with the mental aspect of setback and decline, the swings of despondent resignation to optimism for recovery, to get your teeth into a training schedule and plan, a general plan which adds so much to a life that seems like it simply revolves around work and childcare? Plus, is it possible to quickly regain my VO2 max of the summer in its 50s, which is now approaching the same digits as my age? Oh, it hasn't dropped off that much then. Apologies for the long-winded message. It's the only effort I'm able to participate in at the moment. Best wishes from Ross in Scotland. Right, so let me summarise that a little bit. Thommo basically keeps getting recurrent injuries, doesn't say what they are, but given that they're recurring to the lower left leg and are setting him back, I mean, it does sound like he's doing all the right things with rest, recovery, prescribed exercises and physio appointments. The only thing I would perhaps add into there, what do you think, is gait analysis?
yeah, I think. I mean, my two go tos are yeah, I say go tos, but one of the first things I like to look at when someone says lower leg or lower issues is hip stability or glute stability. Just because obviously that has a lot to how your foot impacts can be offset by the stability of your, so it'd be his left hip or his left glute. But I'm conscious that he's doing a lot of the exercise, doing a lot of the things that he needs to do to get back and dealing with that, because obviously we'll be kind of guessing as to what's going on. I feel like with this one, it's the optimism to keep going things when life is really, really busy, I think is probably more what he's looking for. But I think it's not about pining for what you can't do now that you could have done maybe in your teens and 20s. There's a lot of things you can do now which you couldn't have done then, and it's embracing the things you can do and embracing the physical attributes you will have now. Your endurance will be a lot bigger and a lot stronger. And as Paula mentioned about VO2 max, is like we things like that can drop, but they can come back very quickly because you have that power of memory in the body. And I think sometimes we can feel like we're a lot closer to getting ourselves back on top of things than we can sometimes feel in the moment. And it's reminding ourselves that you just get through the storm of life and kids. I mean, I'm going through this a little bit myself now, that I'm struggling to find that level of consistency because kids are taking over and overriding a lot of what I need to do. But I just know that when I get back into it and give myself that kind of 2 or 3 weeks and get into that routine, that will gather momentum into a much stronger performance and fitness kind of regime. But I certainly, I'm not, I mean, you're slightly, with apologies, Polly, you're slightly ahead of me in age, but like not by much, but like, I don't feel like, your 40s, certainly early 50s, you should feeling doom and gloom about the fact that you can't do things. Fitness is more related to what you've been able to do, which is the fact that in life it's difficult to fit stuff in.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest perhaps in terms of the lessons that you can learn from what sounds like our recurrent injuries, is there a pattern? Is there a warning sign that you can pick up on further in the future just to make sure that you don't keep repeating the same injuries? I think as you get older, you do have to spread out the hard workouts so you can still do them to the top quality and you can still do those VO2 max sessions, but you tend to need a little bit more recovery in between them, and certainly a lot more give and take in terms of listening to your body, looking at those recovery markers and seeing how well that's happened. So I would kind of advocate for a little bit of that in this situation. I think the mental aspect of the setback and decline, I think you've got, and it is really hard, but you've got to try and flip it as a challenge. And kind of the first step is accepting that as you train for particularly events like the marathon, there is a risk of injury in there. So when it happens, just think, right, okay, I've done this before, I've got over it before, I can do it again. And that's the first step to seeing it as beatable, and see it as kind of a challenge to build back, and perhaps a time to work on other areas. So those rehab exercises, if you're injured, you have a little bit more time to work on those. And that time that you would normally spend running, you can spend in the kind of physio table, in the icing process, in all of that process as well. So try and see the positives in it. And try and stay positive as well that you will get back. I think that would be my biggest advice, and just good luck for this season. I'm guessing you're in the middle of a serious injury now, Ross, because you do say that you've already resigned yourself to losing the first third of your plans for 2026. It depends how serious. Maybe let us know what the injury is at the moment, because it's hard to kind of advise on cross training when you don't know exactly what that injury is. But I would argue you can do a fair amount of cross training, which will keep your VO2 max fairly high.
Yeah, and also just finally before we move on, I do think that don't view the fact that you're not running as not training. So if you're doing rehab and stuff like that, you're building up strength, which is relevant to what you need to when you're running. So even though we kind of gauge happiness or progression through actual results, through going out the door and feeling like we're running, doing half an hour of exercises at home is still training. It's still making you strong and robust. Because I spent, I think it was about 7-8 months purely in the gym, no cross training, just gym work, because of the operation I had. And when I did run, I got up to speed very quickly because I was so strong.
Yeah.
And so my fitness came back a lot quicker because I was so strong from all the exercises. So the speed in which you get going once you do run will be determined by how much base work you've done in exercises. So just bear that in mind, and please be patient, because the more time you dedicate to that, the less likely you'll break down when you start up again. So
yeah.
Am I reading the next one? I think we're on to the emails.
Yeah, we have one from David.
So, hi both. Firstly, thank you for all the advice and info you supplied on the podcast. Really useful, and been listening to it from the start. Thank you very much. I wanted some advice on how best to manage the period between marathons against the standard advice. I took the approach this autumn. If I was getting myself ready for one marathon, which was Chester, lovely part of the world, I might as well use that marathon fitness to do a couple more events. I had a 2-week break, ran Abingdon Marathon, then a 3-week break, and ran a third marathon locally in Milton Keynes. Wow, it's quite an exchange of tone to the last email. It probably doesn't sound very wise, but despite my age, 53, I do tend to recover quite quickly, and it didn't feel too much overloading. My question is how I have best used the time between events. I spent a lot of time recovering and only running several 8 to 5k runs in that period, but it wasn't as structured as it should have been. I'm looking to do the same thing again next spring with the virtual London, Milton Keynes and Edinburgh Marathon, all in the diary over 4 weekends. So would it be a good idea to have some it would be good to have some firm advice on how to better manage the rest. Thank you, Dave Allen. P.S. You probably berate me for doing this, but it doesn't seem to work for me, and I like spreading the expectation across several days rather than a big planned one event when all sorts of things can happen. On this occasion, it worked out well and finishing times of 3:11, 3:10, 3:14, but perhaps more by luck than due to smart recovery planning. Paula.
Yeah, then he does add, probably worth adding that I've run 23 marathons over the years, but with more frequency the last 4 years. Originally, I ran 1 or 2 a year, so upping the quantity is new since 2024. I'm going to guess he's probably doing that in the new shoes as well, which do make that process certainly a lot easier. I mean, he's right. My rider for it would be that if you're going to do something like that, you have to choose your main focus. You can't have an equal focus on all three of them over that period. You can use one as a training run and kind of a long training run. And then kind of my advice, I guess, would be to do the one with the biggest break afterwards as your main focus for it. Because that bouncing back, certainly within a week, is very hard. He's doing the right thing in terms of just running a few easy runs in the period between. So you're basically maxing out your effort and then maxing out your recovery in the time between them. So I think so long as you kind of go in with that expectation that were you just to get ready for one, you would run substantially quicker. But you're trying to hit around a benchmark time, which is, I mean, I have to say it was fairly consistent for the time when he did do it with 3:11, 3:10 and 3:14. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really maximizing your nutrition, getting onto your refueling really well during the races, but particularly immediately afterwards, and recovery process, ice baths, massages, resting, compression socks, all of those things to try and just really speed up the recovery process in that time between, just sticking to very easy runs, flush outs, maybe a bit of cross training in there just to help.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to add. I think the thing that it sounds a bit like he kind of, in his words, accidentally seems to have done all right. But I think where he's been smart is done very little between, because
Yeah.
they effectively, it is a training program. It's basically followed a training program of 3 hard runs,
Yeah.
rather than a race program. So if he sees it, which he sounds like he has, he's seen it as a they're all sort of part of one thought
One
process
challenge.
rather than 3 individual ones. Then that's a big part of how he's come out of this well. And there's not a huge amount you need to do between. I mean, he's saying only several 5 to 8k runs. Absolutely, you want to keep the volume down, but maybe you want to do things that are a little bit quicker, just for conditioning reasons, just to get the kind of the legs turning over a pace slightly above marathon pace, so that when it comes to the marathon pace, it feels a bit easier, but also you get the conditioning from the slightly faster running. But keeping the volume down and keeping a bit of structured sort of 5k, maybe more 10k than 5k, and a little bit of half marathon, and you're golden. But I think I don't think there's much more to it, and I certainly don't want to. I'm not going to berate someone that someone doing things like that, because again, I think that's one of the beauties of how the sport's changed. That the shoes have enabled people to be able to do things like that, and embracing that is a fantastic thing if it works for you. But that's why the beauty of marathon is so good. It's all about the individual journey and how you want to do it. And for some people, they'd rather do one-off fast one, and some people want to try and do lots in one go. I do think the shoes have enabled people to have more fun with marathons and what they try and do with it. So if it wasn't sensible, the times and how you felt would have shown that. I think that's the best way to kind of
that's
say
very
it.
true. Right, so the next one comes in from Ali, who was actually at the Steve Cram training camp. And her question, well, she starts off with a story. She tells us, unfortunately, she fell flat on her face during what should have been her 22-mile run in the build-up for a marathon. So she had to rejig her training a little bit, bust up her nose, and had an attractive set of panda eyes for a couple of weeks. I think it would be really helpful for people building up to London next year to know what to do if you have a training disaster. Thanks for the pod and your contributions make running a joy and are very inclusive, which as a slower club runner make me feel part of a bigger running community. That's from Ali. So training disasters, how do we build those in?
So I think uh, the, again, it depends on the type of disaster. I mean, my
Yeah, I mean, have you ever had one? Let's
yeah,
talk our biggest training. Well, yes, you have lots of times.
my
We've talked about
hand.
the hand.
Yeah, my
Um,
hand was the biggest. But I mean, you've got. I suppose you could put them into two categories. One that directly impacts your running,
mhm,
i.e., you've bruised your knee or bruised something from falling over. So it's kind of you're recovering from the accident rather than an injury, rather than a running induced injury. Or you've got the ones that, like my hand or a nose or something, that is more the rest from the physical impact of what's happened, but it shouldn't affect your actual running ability. But
mhm,
either way, I think that in any marathon build up or training program, you're they're having a 12 or 16 week program. I don't think any program is not going to be mindful that there's something might happen. And quite often we can think like I had, what was it, 2 weeks off 8 weeks before the marathon trials, and believe me, I thought that was doom and gloom. And in reality, I look back and I think it helped freshen me up.
mhm.
So you can, by having unforced rest within a program, wherever it might be, if you utilize the fact you are going to be more rested into adapting the program to potentially doing that, you can handle that little bit more, or using that time and making sure you give yourself the appropriate rest for whatever it is so you don't cause something else. Quite often these things can actually work in your favor if you work with it. It's just about being sensible. And I think, but like I say, I think any marathon program that you start should be mindful of things happening, like not directly this, but like it's very rare an athlete does a marathon program and they do literally everything it says on the tin.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think absolutely that you've got to factor in, haven't you, things going wrong or just getting sick or just unexpected setbacks in your training as you build towards a marathon. And I think that is generally factored into any 16-week plan. Certainly, I mean, Ali talks about an 18-week plan. So that gives you time to get over those setbacks. So the first thing is not to panic. And just to see it as a bump in the road that there is time for, has been planned in. Nobody goes straight through on a training program all the way through. I've certainly never met
I was going
anyone.
to say, what was yours biggest one then?
My biggest one was when I was knocked over by a toddler on a
Oh,
bike.
yeah.
3 weeks before, no, 5 weeks before I set the world record in 2003. And
Wow.
I
How long?
dislocated my jaw, smashed my heart rate monitor, which didn't impact my breathing. And I had really bad cuts on both shoulders and kind of my chin. I really looked like I'd been in like a bad accident or something, but basically I just kind of locked my foot, hooked my foot over the front wheel of the child. So I'd just overtaken them. And as I overtook them, they looked back to see where their mum was and turned the wheel as they looked back. And so that turned as my foot was coming through. And it was right at the end of a 23 miler. So I was kind of picking it up, running fairly quickly, but also my reactions were probably a little bit impeded by the
Yeah,
fatigue
yeah.
at that point. So I didn't get my hands up in time and I just basically skidded along the ground on my shoulders and face. And so that took a bit of time to recover from. We were still fixing the knock-on effects to my hip the day before the marathon, but we did get there.
How much did you have totally off running?
Um, totally off. Well, I tried to run the next day, which I wouldn't recommend.
No.
I think running with a bit of a whiplash effect is not fun. So it took a few days, the chiropractor, actually totally off running. It probably only was a couple of days, like 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
But to get back to workouts, I think it was at least a week. And I remember that week I had basically stuck Compeed on the blisters on my shoulders.
Wow.
And then I was doing a tempo run and it was quite windy. and I was in Albuquerque. So the twofold impact was that the wind was peeling back the compede, and then the sand was getting stuck in the
Oh,
cuts. So
wow.
it was painful.
Wow. But I mean, moral of the
Don't use
story is,
compede.
no, I was going to say, moral of the story is that's how you run a world record.
Well, the moral of the story is that everything is okay. The biggest thing is not to panic,
Yeah.
and it is really hard in that moment, particularly as like when Ali said, if you've got visible effects of the fall, in terms of panderize or whatever it is, then that kind of reminds you. So the big learning I would say is you're far more likely to do damage by rushing back too quickly than you are in taking the time to heal and get over whatever the disaster is.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to in any way try and compare myself to you and your standard. That's not what I was about to say. But obviously, you probably missed a few more days than I did. But your world record came off the back of doing what you did, and it was my PB to qualify for the Olympics. Came off the back of a bit more time off, nearly 2 weeks, slightly earlier, but a hand disaster. But I think the consistent thing between us both was staying positive and working the problem to not see it as a self-destructive thing. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably the best learning to pass on is that we kind of both went about it in slightly different ways, but because of the circumstances were slightly different. I couldn't risk, if I'd have got infected in my hand, the surgeon said that was disaster. So I had to be careful with that. But the point being is it's keeping the positive mindset and not seeing it as a barrier is probably the biggest thing you can do in those scenarios. And there's nothing wrong with a panda.
No, no.
They're very lovable. Right, have we got
They
time
are a
for
bit
one more?
sore though when you're training, so I think that would be the biggest thing is getting rid of the bruising first.
Yes, no, true. They're very true. Have we
Yeah,
got
we
time
do
for
have
one more?
time.
Should we do Aaron? Okay. Dear Paul and Chris, I somehow managed to get into London Marathon via the ballot. Well done. There's not many of you.
Yeah, I know.
It's a dream come true, as I have been applying for the last 7 years with no luck. Well deserved, and I think anyone who applies that much. It's a shame they took away the guaranteed entry after I forget how many attempts. But
Yes.
neat, that just shows the level of demand. However, due to applying for so long, I didn't hold out much hope and signed up for a Manchester Marathon next year with a friend. Don't tell me you're giving up your place. Surely not. This is the week before London. So my question is: will it be possible, wise for me to run Manchester Marathon the week before London? This is a good question. The friend and I will be running with a lot slower than the
friend
friend
I'll
I'll
be
be
running.
running with is a lot slower than me. So I was thinking of pacing him around Manchester. I've only ever run one marathon previously, which was this May in Leeds. I've been running for about 6 years now, though, and have a fair few halves. I just wanted some advice. The majority of friends and family, non-runners, are saying just to leave Manchester and focus on London. I know it's a long time off, but I'm struggling as I would like to try and do both. Many thanks, Aaron Parker. Great question, Paula.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued to hear your answer on this.
I think he kind of helps with the answer in terms of clarifying that the friend is slower than his pace, and he's thinking of pacing him around Manchester. So I would say absolutely going in with that mindset. It's a little bit close for a final long run, so you're really going to have to pretty much do nothing through that week, just recovery. The other way of looking at it is that you could pace him comfortably to 20, 22 miles. Maybe not ideal and step aside, but I do think if you run at a slower pace, it's not insurmountable. Now, I would, again, as we've talked about, reiterate putting in place the recovery strategies. So I would have your family and friends, the same ones that are advising you not to do it, waiting there with your refueling drinks immediately that you get across the finish line. So you start that recovery process immediately with that refueling. Make sure that you've booked in the massages, the kind of, you can get into even just a cold shower, but some kind of ice bath, something to help that recovery process. So I would absolutely make sure that you have you will have had maybe a slightly earlier taper to go into Manchester. and then you have a strong back off taper that week. So that week it is just about recovery. Nothing long, nothing over half an hour, very easy runs just to flush out the system. You can perhaps put in a couple of strides towards the end of the week, Thommo, but that would really be it.
Yeah. This is a tricky one, I think, because it comes down to what he wants to get out of it. It's like the question we had earlier around doing multiple marathons. The reality is, if you want to run a fast time or a fast London marathon, it's not advisable to be running a marathon no matter how slow the weekend before, because even if you run slower, its time on feet is even longer. So I think, if you're being honest with yourself, is like, if you're viewing this as London is this thing I want to run really quick in, my suggestion is that the only way Manchester fits into that is what Paula mentioned about pacing your friend to halfway, potentially, with lots of recovery strategies. If you're seeing this as a double weekend challenge, that both kind of are party to the same journey, i.e. Manchester and London are part of the same kind of challenge, which just a week recovery between, then absolutely I think you can do that, but you have to see them both as the same plan. Therefore your taper into Manchester is a lot longer, but you're running Manchester and London knowing that they kind of, the fate lies with them both, would be my feeling. But again, because he's put at the bottom, I'd like to do both, which makes me think he's not as fussed about how fast he runs at London.
Yeah, and I think I get the feeling that he wants to support his friend as well. So I think whichever you decide, Aaron, we will help and support you as much as we can. And please let us know what the decision is and how they go as well afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, you did it, don't forget, Paula.
What, Manchester and London?
No, the 2 marathons.
Yeah, but I had 7 weeks.
Was it 7 weeks? No,
Yeah,
I'm thinking of Adele. I'm thinking of Adele.
Yes, Adele did it.
Adele Roberts.
And she did say it was very tough. But she also flew back. She had to travel back, didn't she?
Yes,
From Boston to London. So I think the travel made it tougher. But yeah, she did it. And she actually ran very well.
And Boston is quite tough on the legs as well. That's the thing, that Manchester is a bit more nicer, gentle in that regard. So I think the only thing to finish on this, whatever you decide to do, and I will say this about anything in life, make a decision and don't look back.
Yeah,
go for
exactly.
it. So whatever you decide in the next 3 or 4 weeks, don't second guess yourself. If you want to do it, make it happen, knowing that challenge is going to be that you live and die by both results, not one. And if you decide, I want to run London, my massive one, make that your decision. Whatever you decide, just do it. Don't look back. And no matter what any noise around you, only listen to the noise that's supporting the decision you make, and make it brilliant.
Absolutely. Very, very wise words. Thank you so much for
Paula.
your interaction. The number, once again, to write in with any questions, or text in with any questions, or to leave us a message, is +44 7564 747 914. We haven't had a voice note for a while, have we? Be good to get a voice note. And you can also email in to Paula's Run Club at momentumbroadcast.co.uk, or of course on socials at Paula's Run Club. This has been brought to you by us, sponsored by HIGH5. So don't forget to use that discount code Paula25 at their website, or on their website, hi5.co.uk. Thank you very much for listening. This has been a Momentum broadcast production. We have our Christmas special will drop on Monday, so don't miss that one. You can see all the extra special bits that we put in there for Christmas. And then we do have the Shakeout actually dropping on Christmas Day, just because it is a Thursday, and of course you don't have to listen to it on Christmas Day. And wishing everybody a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for listening.
See you next week.